Okay, welcome everyone to our regularly scheduled council meeting being held in council chambers here on Tuesday, June 4th, 2024. Before I begin, I'd like to acknowledge some special efforts and initiatives in our community. Of course, most of council and many of our staff colleagues will know that Shalom Small Homes Kemptville broke ground yesterday on their pilot project, which intends to build 4 extremely affordable rent geared to income homes for seniors. We'd like, of course, to recognize the leadership of Jan Ritzkes, who is a recent Governor General Meritorious Medal recipient, and her colleagues, as well as Lockwood Brothers, the builder, who has come on deck to make this project happen. So congrats to Jan and her team, and thanks to our municipal staff for their support. And we look forward to seeing those 4 homes being built in short order. I was also advised yesterday that today is the 80th anniversary of D-Day. So as most of you, I think, will know, this was the largest seaborne invasion ever attempted in history, and a day when more than 14,000 Canadian soldiers landed or parachuted into France. But of course, tragically, many lost their lives. And council was invited recently to an Upper Canada District School Board day where many students looked specifically at remembering our veterans and our fallen soldiers through research of names on local cenotaphs and the lives lost of those through Hill 70. So we know 80 years is less than a lifetime, and certainly a period that we should never forget. Also, on the weekend, we honored Pride Month with a Pride Parade and after party. And again, we want to recognize North Grenville Pride and the North Grenville Rainbow Youth Alliance for their leadership and their efforts to make June an important month here in North Grenville. Of course, June is also Indigenous Peoples Month, and we look forward to marking Indigenous Peoples Month later this June, alongside our Indigenous Advisory Circle. So we know we have some events coming up that are important to both Indigenous and non-Indigenous members here in North Grenville. Finally, as many likely know, we have our monthly food drive where the OPP and our very own North Grenville Fire Service are facing off again this year to see who can collect the most donations for the Salvation Army Food Bank. And drop-offs are at Community Living between now and June 14th. And last year it was quite the rivalry, so I look forward to seeing who wins this time. So certainly do your part to share the news about this particular food drive. At this time of year, all our food banks do see a drop in donations, and the summer is long, and families require support, and seniors require support throughout the entire year. So keeping the food bank in mind is definitely something we value and we hope to support. And finally, of course, this weekend is the return of the annual Heyday event. It is Eastern Ontario's largest garage sale, and all funds go to supporting the Kemptville District Hospital and specifically the CT scanner. We are getting so much closer to getting that CT scanner built. It's a very important diagnostic tool for all those who visit KDH. It also saves our paramedics time because they don't have to transfer as many patients into regional hospitals so that they can be available for those life-saving calls. So definitely Heyday is an event that we're all excited about, and there are some fabulous finds, and you have the opportunity to support a great cause in your community. So with that, I will call the meeting to order, and I'll invite a council colleague to read our land acknowledgement. Council colleagues? Councillor Sullivan, go ahead.
The municipality of North Grenville acknowledges that the municipality operates on the territory of the Anishinaabe. We recognize all First Nations, Métis, and Inuit peoples who now call North Grenville their home. We respect and support the need for cultivating a strong relationship, and we commit to Indigenous-informed decision-making to foster the path towards reconciliation.
Thank you. Next, we'll move to approval of the agenda. The recommendation, of course, is that the council agenda for June 4th, 2024 be approved as presented. Council colleagues, any feedback or concerns in regards to the agenda? Seeing none, put the screen down so I can see you. I will look for a mover and a seconder, please, for the adoption of the agenda. Deputy Mayor, Councillor Wilson, thank you. I'm going to call the vote. All in favor, please. Excellent. That passes. Disclosures of interest, colleagues. Are there any matters on tonight's agenda that cause concern when it comes to perceived or real financial benefit or loss for which you would like to declare an interest? Seeing nothing, I'll move on. Next, we do have one delegation tonight, and we're very pleased to welcome Emily Farrell, who's the Chief Executive Officer for the North Grenville Public Library. So welcome. Ms. Farrell, great to have you. We look forward to your report.
Thank you, Your Worship.
Oh, there we go.
Okay. Good evening, Your Worship, members of council. I'm very honored to be here this evening. As Her Worship stated, my name is Emily Farrell. I am the CEO of the North Grenville Public Library, and it is my pleasure to spend the next few minutes discussing your community library, what we got up to last year, and some of the things that we are planning for this year. So next slide, please. So looking back on 2023, we are continuing to see an increase in in-person visits in terms of recovery post-pandemic. What this looks like for 2023 was we had over 11,000 more in-person visits compared to the previous year. We offered 412 programs for communities, which were very well attended. So an example of that is our programs, on average, each program had 18 attendees. I felt very welcomed here. I've been here just over 6 months now. This is a very welcoming community to be in. Another thing that I've noticed in my 6 months is that this is a community of readers. You all really like to read. What this looks like is that every hour the library was open in 2023, 45 items were borrowed, to a total of 92,431 items borrowed in 2023. Next slide, please. Now, some people watching from home might be wondering why I've been saying items instead of books, and that is because the library is more than books now. Due to the municipality and support from Participation, we were able to launch our recreation library last year. This includes things like disc golf sets, walking poles, pickleball sets, tennis rackets, bocce sets, snowshoes, and even a metal detector. So I always like to say that in the library, we can find just about any information that you need. And now with our metal detector, if you lose an earring in the yard, we can help you find that too. Other items to note from 2023 is that through a grant from Dyslexia Canada, we were able to launch our decodable book collection. And we work to further our partnership and support for French language learning within the community by adding new shelving to increase the size of our French book collection. Next slide, please. So this year, we are working on expanding our partnerships and getting beyond our doors a little bit more. Hopefully, you will have already seen us out in the community at CD Sunday and in the Pride Parade. Another example of our partnerships is that we're very pleased to be able to work with the Bishop's Mills WI to offer a repair cafe for the community. At this cafe, we have been able to help people repair clothing, small appliances. They even did some minor woodworking repairs on one of the library's podiums for us one week. Another thing that we're very much looking forward to this summer is the launch of the musical instrument lending library. And I'm going to do a shameless plug right now, just to say that we are now accepting donations of musical instruments. So please feel free to contact the library if you have an instrument you'd like to donate. The only thing I will say is that we are very grateful for the inquiries, but we are not able to accept donations of pianos.
Can I just interrupt you? Because I think, through an earlier funding application this year to the Community Grants Program, also funded a musical instrument lending library. So are these the same initiatives?
Yes, they are the same. So we're working with Herb Cloutier,
Right.
who was
Okay.
the applicant
Yes.
on that. He is our lead volunteer for this. It's really been his baby. We're very happy to be able to work with him to get it across the finish line. We have a lot of the infrastructure and the technology already to have a lending library, as makes sense. So it seems like a very natural fit.
Great. Well, it's good to see that collaboration with very enthusiastic community leaders who I think have been wanting a musical instrument lending library for a while. Will there be limits on your capacity when it comes to instruments, recognizing you can't take pianos, but how much space realistically would you have for those musical instruments?
So we have a space that will be open for the public on the Kemptville campus. And the campus has been very helpful. They're another partner in this project. And we'll have a dedicated space that will be the lending library itself, because we don't currently have that kind of physical capacity within either of our existing branches.
So your role is in the checking out and tracking of the instruments, is that right?
It will be under the umbrella of the North Grenville Public Library. So we will be using the library's barcodes and the software. But we will have, it's going to be, the way we're kind of viewing it is it will be like a third branch for the community.
And nice to see that you can extend your reach into the Kemptville campus as well. Wonderful news. Thank you.
So just one last kind of statistic that I wanted to leave with you all this evening. I think most people are well aware of the fact of the amount of growth that is happening in this community. And we are also seeing that level of growth at the North Grenville Public Library. One of the ways in which we are seeing this growth is in the number of new library cards that people are getting. So from January 1st to May 31st of this year, we have made 428 new library memberships. That translates to, for every 2 hours that we are open to the public, we are making a new library card. Next slide, please.
What does that, can you translate that into how many people in North Grenville would hold library cards?
So we have total memberships is 9,853.
Okay. And do you have to be a resident of North Grenville to hold a library card?
You do not. So we really try hard, Your Worship, to make everyone who wants a library card can get one. So we try to work on having reciprocal agreements with neighboring public libraries. So for example, residents of Merrickville can get a free membership for here, and similarly residents of North Grenville can get a free membership for the Merrickville Public Library. So some of our residents that do live closer to Merrickville may find that more advantageous,
So if
and vice
you
versa.
have kids that happen to go to school in Kemptville, but they live in Osgood, or they live in surrounding municipalities apart from Merrickville, what's your protocol?
Our protocol, Your Worship, is to have anyone who goes to school in North Grenville or works in North Grenville is also able to have a free library card membership.
It's funny because, when I moved here, you had to show a bill, you had to obviously prove your residency. So what I'm hearing is with time, there's a little more flexibility if people are spending time in our community in a different way, other than living here full-time.
We do, Your Worship, still require some form of proof of identity at this point in time, in some form in which we can contact the individual for things like overdues. Or if they've put something aside, like a metal detector, because they've lost an earring. We do need some sort of contact information for them, but we do really want as many people to be able to get library cards for free as possible.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. And I welcome any other questions.
Yes, Deputy Mayor, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Through you to Emily. It's not often we applaud a delegation, but it certainly is a good news report that you're delivering today, so that's great. With the growth of the community, what are your growth plans, like physical growth plans? I'm a resident of Oxford Mills, and I was around in the day when we consolidated all our satellite libraries into this beautiful building that you're managing. It's a very tall building. It's as tall, not quite as tall as this chamber, but I'm struck by the full shelves. What are your plans for growth, physical growth?
Through your worship to Deputy Mayor, we are going to be working on our service delivery review for this fall, where we're able to take an evaluation of where we're at, what the future of the community is going to look like, and what we need to do to help us get there is to make sure that we're meeting the needs of the community. That service delivery review may include some recommendations for physical capacity additions. We will be adding, with the musical instrument lending library, we'll be adding additional space in the terms of through essentially a third branch. We love our Kempfel-Nuremberg branch. It is a beautiful building. I feel everyone who comes through talks about how beautiful it is, and a lot of that credit goes to municipal staff for the facilities. They do a very good job in keeping that well-maintained in beautiful shape. We recognize that it is a municipal space, so it's subject to municipal facility, capital management plan. I think that's the correct asset management plan. Thank you. So whether or not in the future we are looking at changes to that space itself or additional physical locations, or pop-up libraries, these are all things that we will look into this fall and then make a plan moving forward.
Does that include mobile library, like a library bus?
It absolutely could include a mobile library.
I think Councillor Wilson, you sit on this board, is that right?
Through your worship, yes, I do.
Okay.
And thank you, Emily, for your presentation. Sitting on the library board has certainly opened my eyes to how much work and dedication goes into having a public library such as this, and I applaud you. Thank you.
Just a quick question. Did I understand that many libraries in Ontario eliminated overdue fees? Is that something that our library did? I believe so, but I don't want to
Yes.
speak out of turn.
Yes, Your Worship, that is correct. Earlier this spring, we did eliminate late fees for overdue items at the library. We were actually a bit late to the table from that. A lot of other public libraries in Ontario and throughout Canada have already taken that step. For us, we had eliminated late fees at the start of the pandemic. We simply had the extra step of making it permanent this spring. So we have not been charging late fees since 2020, which is in line with when most public libraries in Ontario also discontinued late fees.
And is there a notable impact on your capacity to retain books or get them back on time in terms of the elimination of late fees?
No, Your Worship, there has been negligible, and that also tracks with experiences that I've had at other public libraries when they've eliminated late fees. There's not a significant uptick. There was not a significant uptick at those other libraries as well in terms of the number of items overdue.
So users of the library tend to be loyal and want to return their books on time, unless you're an extremely busy mother of three like I am. And at one point I accumulated many late fees at the library, always endeavored to pay them. But what I'm hearing is really that most users are very cognizant, right, that they're taking books out, they need to bring them back. So it really doesn't represent a loss.
And there's a fascinating conversation that we could have at some point in time, Your Worship, about behavioral psychology,
Right.
and incentive, but this is not the forum for that.
Yes.
What I will say is part of in my 10 years experience as a CEO, we've witnessed, late fees can result in a level of shame that is put on the individual that can act as a barrier to accessing information and having that level of that equitable access to educational resources that they can get through a public library. So by eliminating that barrier through overdue fees, we're helping to further remove barriers to accessing the facilities and accessing the collection. I will say that we do still expect people to return the collection items.
Yeah.
If people keep them for too long, we will contact them. There will be fees, but in terms of if you're a day late, a week late, don't stress.
Right.
Bring it back when you can.
So it's when people don't return the book at all that it becomes a problem.
Yeah.
But being late on a return is no longer an issue.
It's not an issue.
Understood. Okay, that's great. Thank you. Okay. Anything else, colleagues, in regards to this? Not seeing anything? Well done. We know we are a high-growth community. I'm glad people are finding their way to the library. We understand with the establishment of the courthouse apartments right next door, there was a bit of concern about parking and how people would make their way to the library, but it certainly doesn't sound like there have been many obstacles or people are persisting despite some of the minor challenges they might encounter. We've got lots of great parking at Riverside Park, which is not that far away.
The other thing I will add to that, Your Worship, is that we're very pleased with the fact that the NG Transit stops right outside the library.
Right.
Yeah, it's a very good partnership.
Excellent. Right, because you have a dedicated stop right outside of the library now. Excellent. Do you find a lot of people make their way to the library through NG Transit?
I don't have a direct sight line to it, so I couldn't comment, Your Worship, but I do really appreciate the level of foresight and collaboration that came from municipal staff through that initiative. It was really great.
Awesome. Thank you. All right. So thank you for being here. We appreciate it. Are we receiving Emily's report this evening, Chloe? We may. Okay. Well, we are very pleased that you made time for us, Ms. Farrell, so appreciate it. All right. So then we'll move on then, colleagues, to our consent agenda. As we know, items listed under the consent agenda are considered routine or no longer require further discussion and are enacted in one motion. The exception to this rule is that a member may request that one or more items be pulled from the consent agenda. So are there any proposed amendments to the consent agenda? I would like to pull the 2024 update on the drinking water quality management system operational plan. So Mr. Finley, I'm sure that you can handle that to some extent. Excellent. Is there anything else people would like to pull this evening? Seeing none, I will then call for a mover and a seconder for the consent agenda as amended to be approved. Councillor Wilson, Councillor Barclay, thank you. And I'll call the question. All in favor? Good, that carries. Thank you. All right, so we're going to go on then, accepting that we have adopted a lot through our consent agenda. I believe that we are going to Mr. Guy now, who is going to present the proposal around the former Oxford Mills Town Hall public consultation.
Thank you, Mayor Peckford. So tonight I have a report dealing with the scope of work for the former Oxford Mills Town Hall public consultation. So key findings within the report, there was a public consultation exercise conducted in 2016 for this particular facility as well as the former courthouse building. We, at the time, I believe there was 2 stakeholder meetings that the consultant met with, the North Grenville Historical Society and the North Grenville Heritage Committee. At the time, there was a public information session as well as a public survey. They looked at various uses that the buildings could be used for in the future, suggested more public consultation should take place, and also to hire an engineering specialist to perform a more in-depth analysis assessment of the facility. So that building assessment and structural review was completed in 2023, and in 2023, the interior building demolition was completed as well. On April 16th of this year, at the council meeting, there was a notice of motion brought forward for myself to bring a scope of work for a comprehensive community engagement exercise for the future uses of the former Oxford Mills Town Hall as a public facility. So the scope of work is as follows: to seek professional services to conduct a comprehensive public consultation for the exercise of the adaptive reuse of the facility. It's to include the following: review documents, which would be the Laterno report, any bylaws associated with this facility, as well as the engineering and structural review report that was done in 2023. Prepare an interim report, and after that interim report has been submitted, consult with the public, and then report on a final report and presentation. The draft timelines at this point are to prepare and advertise the RFP June 25th, have submissions received by July 18th, review by July 26th, award by July 30th, the interim report roughly a month later. Feel that the exercise will take about 2 months to go through the public consultation, and then final report and council presentation in November of this year. And that is the report.
Great. Thanks. So I'll acknowledge Deputy Mayor, Councillor O'Sullivan. Do I have that in the right order, colleagues? Okay, Councillor O'Sullivan, go ahead.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, through you to Director Guy. So this notice of motion came in April of this year, and you're at this point right now. Was this part of the 2024 budget, or was the money set aside already for this previously?
Through your worship to Councillor O'Sullivan, it is an unbudgeted project. However, funds from the Heritage Reserve Fund can be used to fund this exercise.
And can you give us an idea what the?
We've estimated it to be around $50,000 to complete.
Okay. And there is sufficient funds in that reserve?
Yes, there is.
Okay, thank you. Is there still money in that reserve then to do the work that would come back as recommended?
No, there wouldn't be. We don't have those kind of funds in that reserve.
Okay.
If you may recall, when we applied for the Green and Inclusive Community Building, I think we had estimated around $1.3 million to complete the work inside the facility at the time.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thanks. Deputy Mayor?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Through you to Director Guy, I've got a question and a suggestion. So the question is, how did we land at that $50,000 figure? I'm no expert in what these things cost, but I thought, in my impression, it would be a little bit less than that.
Through you, your worship, to Deputy Mayor Barclay. You may very well be right, Deputy Mayor. However, I think we're being overly cautious to make sure that there is enough funds in the reserve to complete this project. Based on the number of stakeholder meetings that we have suggested that will take place, a survey, a public consultation, 2 reports that we're asking for, plus a presentation. I think that's how, we estimated it could be close to $50,000, but it may very well be less than that.
Just to follow up, if I might, on that question. When we send out for a request for a proposal, I imagine everybody will be aiming for that $50,000 mark. Would it be more prudent to have a lower amount, or do we advertise the value of the work done?
Thanks for the question. We wouldn't advertise that that's what we've budgeted it for.
Other than this public meeting?
I guess.
Yeah.
But
Given that...
generally, I know at times we do give an upset a limit. It wasn't my thought that we would do that with this particular project.
Okay. I know we have more than that in the reserve. I don't know how much we have in the reserve because we haven't had a report on where we are with that reserve. But I would suggest, we'd look to have slightly less than $50,000 for what it's worth. My suggestion is that in terms of the document review, I might suggest that in addition to the documents that you've stated in your report, that we include the tourism strategy and, when it's completed, the economic development strategy. Thanks.
Oh, good suggestion. As you were speaking, we can also provide them with the Parks and Recreation Master Plan from 2020 as well.
Okay. Well, I know, I think since 2016, Mr. Guy, the fate of this hall has been the subject of lots of conversation and casual speculation about what the best use is. So hopefully this consultation will get us a little bit closer to a proposed end use. I know you and your team worked very hard on a funding application to support the redevelopment of the hall, and I'm optimistic there are other funding opportunities around the corner, so maybe this consultation will get us a little bit closer. It would be really great to see the hall have a sort of end permanent use that could be embraced by the community, and we know you and your staff have worked hard on doing some of that preliminary work, so we're very appreciative. So hopefully this will continue that momentum.
Thank you very much.
Right, so I'm not seeing other questions. I believe that Ms. Preston is going to suggest a small modification to the recommendation for consideration. Where are we at, Mr. Guy, with the work that was done, the preliminary work that was done on the Old Township Hall?
The demolition is complete except for the vault that
Okay.
is still inside the facility. We ran into a bit of a snag with that. The contractor, in the end, didn't feel they had the necessary, were equipped to demolish the vault. So we're working with the engineer to source out some other contractors to get that work done.
And what is the vault?
It's a concrete vault
Okay.
inside the facility that housed a bunch of archival documents
okay.
from many, many years ago.
And in your view, it's necessary to demolish the vault, I guess, looking towards those future uses?
Yeah, it's taken up quite a bit of space in there, and there's really no use for it anymore, intended use for it in terms of an adaptive reuse program for the facility. So it would make sense to remove it.
Okay, so that's the last piece.
That is the last piece.
And then in terms of the exterior of the building, can you remind me? Has
We-
any, yeah,
We removed the front and rear vestibules.
Right.
That were never part of the original facility.
Okay.
They've been removed.
and the status of the roof at this stage is fairly okay?
The structural review didn't pose any immediate issues that we would have with the facility until we were ready to move forward with a long-term plan for the building.
Okay.
But, it is staff's intention to continue to monitor the facility, make any minor maintenance repairs to it if necessary.
Okay,
So, even though it's not being used, it's not that it's being ignored.
indeed. Okay, thank you. I appreciate that refresher. So, council colleagues, the recommendation this evening is that council approve the scope of work with additional documents for review, including our tourism strategy, our economic development strategy, and our Parks and Rec master plan, in order to complete a public consultation exercise for the adaptive reuse of the former Oxford Mills Town Hall. Do we have a mover, Deputy Mayor, seconder, Councillor Sullivan? Thank you. Any last comments or questions in regards to this one? Yes, go ahead, Deputy Mayor.
In 1875, they knew how to build things to last.
Yes, it's true. That is a correct statement, that's for sure. So we look forward to seeing what the possibilities are. I think it's a very exciting time, and I'm glad to see this come forward. So I will call the question. All in favor, please? Good, that carries. Thank you. All right, now under planning and development, who's delivering the report in regards to K.7? Oh, Jeff, hello. I'm so sorry. I saw planning and development, but of course, you're here. Thank you. Appreciate your time this evening, so go ahead.
Good evening, Madam Mayor and councillors. I prepared the Noxalone kit report, and as an introduction, in Ontario, we're currently grappling with a significant opioid crisis. This public health emergency has been driven by the widespread availability of potent opioids, including prescription painkillers and illicit drugs such as fentanyl and carfentanil. Naloxone is a medication that can temporarily reverse the effects of an opioid overdose. It is available in an injectable and nasal spray forms and can be distributed to first responders, healthcare providers, and the public as part of our harm reduction strategies to combat the current crisis. Next slide, please. On January 9th, 2024, Council directed staff to research the implications of adding these naloxone kits to the first aid kits in municipal public settings. And as part of the analysis, staff considered training implications, liability issues, safety concerns, legislative mandates, and the existing emergency response framework within the municipality. In regards to legislation, when we review these matters, we have to look at the Occupational Health and Safety Act, which mandates employers to provide a safe and working environment for the employees. This act was also amended in 2023, requiring employers to train employees and maintain naloxone kits for employees when a known risk to an employee has been identified. The emphasis is on the employee here. Also to consider is the Good Samaritan Drug Overdose Act, and provides a legal protection for individuals who seek emergency help during an overdose and to those who administer the naloxone. And also the Ontario Naloxone Program for Pharmacies. This allows pharmacies to dispense naloxone to anyone without a prescription, members of the public. And when considering the current emergency response framework in North Grenville, currently the OPP and the paramedics are the only ones equipped with the naloxone kits and trained to administer those kits. The North Grenville Fire Service are not currently equipped with naloxone. For the training requirements, as part of the analysis, staff would require training on the identification of opioid overdose symptoms and the correct administration of naloxone. And this training, Public Health has advised us they could provide that at no cost for the initial training. Yearly refresher training would be required. There could be a cost involved depending on the specific policies the municipality would choose to implement. Next slide. Staff sought the advice from a municipal solicitor and insurance provider in regards to get advice on this topic. Staff was informed that there would be an increase in liability if naloxone was made available by the municipality. These safety and liability concerns include the fact that naloxone kits must be secure but yet accessible to prevent misuse or theft of the kits. The kits must be stored in an area with a temperature between 15 degrees and 25 degrees Celsius, which has to be considered when we have so many different locations that are outdoors into the elements. Kits must be inspected regularly to ensure that they are fully stocked, not tampered with, and have not expired. Policies would be required to address the legislation, the storage, inspections, the accessibility, the training, and the administration of naloxone. And hazards also to the employees could include the exposure to opioids, exposure to aggressive individuals, which is a known side effect of naloxone, exposure to biohazards in the event the individual becomes physically ill, psychological exposure to an employee providing first aid. And there are others. These are the ones that during my research I found. There could be a delay in EMS being contacted if the first aid provider would forget that now as they're running for a kit to administer. There would be costs associated with the kits, with consultation with the public health, the Leeds and Grenville Public Health. They would not be providing kits free of charge, and the pharmacies, from what I learned, they're only administering them or giving kits to the members of the public. These kits cost $112 each. That they last for approximately 18 months to 24 months for the expiry date. The municipality has 28 first aid kits that could be used by a member of the public. The total cost of the initial purchase would be $3,543.68. And then again, regarding the initial training, that would be provided by public health at no cost. And depending on the yearly refresher, depending on the policy would be implemented, there could be a cost associated at that point. In conclusion, based on the research conducted, staff advises against implementing a widespread deployment of naloxone kits. Staff believe that paramedics and the police remain the most appropriate and efficient responders to opioid-related emergencies. Thank you. Any questions?
Great, thank you. I'm going to recognize Deputy Mayor and then Councillor Sullivan.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Through you to Mr. Baribeau. I have it was free, a naloxone kit, and I've just discovered that because of the temperature I store it at and the age of it, that it's basically ineffective. My question is, do we know, have any idea of the response times of the OPP or EMS, I guess, to...
So that was actually evaluated a little bit due to our proximity. Most parks are fairly close. We're pretty lucky being such a small, close community. Giving you exact response times, I would be better off suited to deferring that to the OPP or the paramedics and provide you an answer at a later time.
But I would imagine it would be longer than any municipal employee would take. I'm hazarding that as a guess, but it may not be true.
No, that could be for sure. That could be a, yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Councillor Sullivan?
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and thank you, Jeff, for your presentation. I actually have a number of questions and comments to make, so I don't know if you want me to ask them one at a time or shoot and you can. I agree with everything that you said, except for your recommendation. So to me, all the introduction and all the information that you give contradicts the recommendation. It's a rising crisis. It's well known. Naloxone can save a life. There's a lot of the reasons that were in this document that I don't quite understand. So we have AEDs. AEDs require training. They require a refresher. They need to be secure and accessible. They need to be stored and regularly inspected so that they're not tampered with and they're not expired. We have to have policies and legislation around them. Someone who has a heart attack or even an injury out in the ice or whatever in the building or in the park, there can be injuries that will leave staff exposed to body fluids. So there's the same risks as with a heart attack. Someone could vomit after a heart attack or, this could happen. So the exposure is the same. The delay in having EMS being contacted, I don't understand that. How so would that be? Because if I said, Mark, call 911 and get me an AED, or I said, Jeff, call 911 and get me naloxone, to me, that's part of the training. The first thing you do is call 911 and get whatever product or equipment you have handy. The cost for an AED is probably around $1,500 to $2,000. We're talking $112 for a kit versus an AED. Training free by public health and then yearly refreshers. You have to do that anyway with an AED. People need to know CPR and first aid. Legislation that requires training for this situation, as far as we know, we don't have an employee who's at risk of an overdose, but nobody knows that. I have a relative who died over about 4 to 6 weeks ago from an opioid overdose. I don't think if he'd had access to naloxone, he may well still be with us today. We can't assume that people aren't at risk of overdosing because there's prescription drugs that people have and they get hooked on, and they're otherwise not your typical drug addict. So I don't understand why our fire department doesn't have naloxone kits, because they're often the first responders. I don't know why they don't. What is the increase in the liability? Did we have an increase in liability from using AEDs or having AEDs on site? And so you advised against widespread deployment of naloxone kits. I can understand and appreciate the temperature issue with having them outside in parks, etc. But what about having them in specific places rather than widespread with every first aid kit? So those are my questions. I don't know. And what did Lanark Leeds Grenville Health Unit have to say other than they would do the training? Are they?
When conducting, through you, Madam Mayor, when conducting this research, I utilized the assistance from many different employees from the municipality to reach out to all their contacts. So a lot of the information here was collaboration between many different staff members. From my understanding, they're an upper tier, and the training was provided by their paramedic service, and they were provided free of charge from my understanding. Don't unfortunately quote me on that. And I don't know the reasoning, policies, anything of that sort, but that's something I could always bring back if required.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know what the prevalence is here in North Grenville, but I do know that Health Unit has said there's an increase in purple fentanyl. I don't know what it is, and God forbid, I hope I never have someone get in this situation. But the possibility is always there, and I think it's a small investment. If it's $3,000 for every kit, and we obviously can't do it in every kit because of temperature, et cetera, or are these kits all stored inside?
So I'm going to ask Ms. Dunlop to respond because she has some additional information.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I think that there's a couple things that I'm hearing this evening, and I think maybe bringing it back is a good idea based on the following. Why don't the fire department have them? It's not, unfortunately, we don't have a representative from the fire department here, so that could be something that we could bring back the information. AED versus the naloxone kits are different regards to an AED is an automated function, right? Versus that human interaction. That human has to make that assessment of, do I administer the naloxone kit or not? So I think that that's some additional information we can bring back. Your other question is in regards to the 28 kits. No, we have some in trucks. They wouldn't be able to handle the temperature swings, of course, tomorrow being 31 plus. We know what those inside those trucks are going to be like. So I think, if I may, Madam Mayor, suggest that we defer this and bring back some additional information and revisit the topic.
I think I would be supportive of that, certainly at this stage. And maybe, Mr. Barber, we appreciate all of your research and analysis around this. I'd be curious to know where municipalities may have gone down this path and where they may have not. Clearly, there's probably a myriad of communities, some of which have opted to some extent or another to perhaps make these kits more widely available. So I don't know if you have any additional insight into that. I do support the deferral. It was on my mind to ask that question. And if you could turn on your mic, please. Thank you.
I don't know why. Shut up by itself. I apologize, Madam Mayor. During our research, we did communicate with several different municipalities. We did an outreach. Only one came back, it would be Lanark, that they have equipped. Everyone else, including high-risk areas, have not equipped.
Okay. Well, that's more information that you can bring back in an additional report. So, I mean, I suppose if you were to say anything at all, I do share the concern that we are a large geographic area. So perhaps there is merit to considering how to make these kits more readily available, but perhaps there are other mechanisms or a more narrow focus on where we can create that accessibility without increasing the burden on municipal staff or others where there's obviously real concern around liability. So if we could take a mover and a seconder for deferral of this report. Thank you, Deputy Mayor, Councillor Sullivan. That'll allow staff and Ms. Dunlop to do a little more work. All right. Anything else you'd like to say, Mr. Barrow?
Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Okay. So with that, I'm going to call the question. All in favor? Thank you. And Ms. Dunlop, I'm sure you can give us an update midsummer on where this report will stand for likely early fall, I assume. Okay. Thank you very much. None of these decisions are easy. We are serving in a complex time, so I appreciate all of the considerations that go into these conversations. It's not easy. So thank you for your efforts thus far, Mr. Baribeau. And to Councillor Sullivan, who's obviously also given this lots of thought. I did indicate to Ms. Preston that I did want to ensure that we did speak about the Drinking Water Quality Management System operational plan. So I apologize, Ms. Preston, if I surprised you with this evening. I do feel it's important in North Grenville because there are sometimes perceptions that we don't have good water quality or that water quality is being compromised by our growth, to ensure that this item is on the agenda just so we can have a little bit of dialogue and highlight, A, that we have really high quality water, and B, that the supply of that water is quite good. So Mr. Finley, over to you to give us just a high level review of this operational plan that was put forward.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. So the report before Council is the update to the Drinking Water Quality Management System, our standard, and the operational plan that relies within that. It is the plan and endorsement that we're looking for. We did give an annual report back in March regarding the performance of the system, which was audited and inspected, and we did receive no issues from the ministry during their inspections. We aren't seeing, just a bit of history on that, we aren't seeing any negative effects from our current drinking water system that was provided in that report. So in regards to the report today, as mentioned, the recommendation is for Council to endorse the Drinking Water Quality Management Operational Plan. This is Plan 2.0 that was put in by the province back in 2018, and this is version 9 of that operational plan. So the key findings is the last endorsement was done back in 2019. We have, of course, had municipal elections since then with changing councillors, as well as personnel changes to top management for the drinking water system. And these are an endorsement from both areas to ensure that the municipality meets the requirements of the drinking water management standard and this operational plan. Next slide, please. So as mentioned, it is a provincial requirement that every municipal residential drinking water system have an accredited quality management system, a QMS, and it is communicated through an operational plan. This operational plan is made up of 21 elements that are prescribed by the province, and they include items such as the commitment endorsement from council and from top management, identifying the quality management system representative, different record controls. It does give an overview of the drinking water system, as well as plans to do risk assessments and the outcomes of those risk assessments. It gives operational roles and responsibilities from positions that are responsible for the drinking water system, as well as essential services and suppliers, policies for review of infrastructure maintenance, rehabilitation, our sampling and monitoring, all these items to ensure that we do have a drinking water system that is operating as per provincial requirement. So as we mentioned, we have had key personnel changes as well as some changes to the infrastructure system. Some of these major items include pipe upgrades to our Kernahan and Van Buren water pumping stations. These were optimization and performance items that were done just recently over the past 2 years. We did, of course, in 2023, include the addition of the Northwest Quadrant well, which is operational and connected to our drinking water system. As part of growth in the Equinel subdivision, there was an increase to the Equinel booster pumping station. And of course, as growth continues, the distribution network continues to grow as well. So those are the major changes that are provided in the operational plan, and it was provided in the appendix to the report. Next slide, please. This gives you a picture of the new Northwest Quadrant pumping station. Again, that was just put online late last year and is up and running. I did also want to note that the operational plan is audited annually internally through our compliance coordinator, as well as there's a provincially accredited third-party reviewer that also audits the quality management system program annually as well. Over the past 5 years of that audit, we've only received one minor non-conformance, which was administrative in nature. There was some paperwork that needed to be filed and was filed subsequent to that review and of course closed out after that. So that is the basis of my report, but I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you so much, Mr. Finlay. So as I understand it, as the need for municipal drinking water has grown, the capacity within the municipality to ensure high water quality and safe drinking water has also grown. So you've had to obviously invest in an expanded staff team to make sure that the monitoring is as per the province's requirements. Is that right? I know there have been changes in personnel, but have you grown the staff team when it comes to drinking water oversight?
That is correct, Madam Mayor. We've also added some lead operators, I apologize, to ensure that we have, as well as an additional operator position, to ensure that we have the staff responsible to address any concerns that come up. In terms of the quality of the water, it hasn't changed. It remains safe, potable. No issues have been noted. We are just, as we expand, we are using more stations to ensure reliability and redundancy in the system so that we can continue to operate as expected.
Excellent. And you referred to the Equinel BPS reservoir tank. Can you remind members of the public what that tank is used for?
Sure, Madam Mayor. So every station that we have has what we call a reservoir, so it stores water, which allows for disinfectant concentration times as well as fire supply and reservoir for that we pump into the distribution system for residents to drink. So as the system grows, we expand those reservoirs, and that was part of the program since the development of the Equinel pump station. As the development grew, more demands were needed in that area as planned, and as such, we actually increased the size of that reservoir.
And is that at a municipal cost or a developer cost?
That was at the developer cost.
Okay, excellent. And it probably is a good time to remind folks that investments in our municipal water system are borne by the users of the system and development charges, as well as developers, where they have to make necessary upgrades. Have I stated that correctly?
That is correct, Madam Mayor. User rates or your water bills, the fees for that pay for the water. It's a user fee system, so they are paid for. All the maintenance of the water system is paid for through those user fees, as well as if there's expansions due to development, the development community pays for those increases.
And finally, my last question is, do we expect to see another well on the horizon? Of course, one was just completed for the Northwest Quadrant. Where does the municipality stand in its longer-term planning when it comes to municipal water?
So it's an interesting question because we are currently underway. Council recently approved the water and wastewater servicing master plan, and that will identify any future well increases that are going to be needed. There will be an evaluation done on the demands of our current system and what is needed to support growth. So we will find out in short term that the two identified were the major components for current expansion. So we will see as this new evaluation takes place.
Excellent. Okay. Thank you very much. Any other questions, Deputy Mayor?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Through you to Director Finley. It's a rather obscure question, but it's something that occurred to me in the course of your presentation. Like, I understand that Mother Earth has provided us a lot of volume and great quality with the new well in the Northwest Quadrant, but one of the impacts that you said, one of the things that impacts it is the impact of development, increased distribution. How is that manifested? Like, I mean, what does increased distribution mean? All these additional pipes that the water's flowing through before it. It's a closed loop system, right? So we all share within the urban service area the same water. But with all this new development, what kind of impact does that have on the quality, if any?
So through you, Madam Mayor, to Deputy Mayor Barkley, in terms of quality, there is no change in the water quality because of, as you mentioned, we are a single pressurized system. All the wells work together to ensure the proper pressures and proper treatment is provided to the whole distribution system. So as that is why we looked at growth areas, having additional wells and pumping stations to ensure that we can provide that pressurized water to the residents and to the development community, but it doesn't change the quality of the water.
Great, thank you. So with this in mind, Ms. Preston, are we receiving the report? Oh, I'm sorry, Councillor Sullivan, I did not see your hand. I apologize. Go ahead.
That's okay. Thank you, Madam Mayor. Through you to Director Finley. I know the answer, I think, but I'm not exactly sure of the location, but probably for the benefit of the public, there are 4 wells that service 5 now, the newest one being the one in Oxford Village. And people may notice that well, as well as the one on County Road 43 across from Colonnade, the reservoirs are above ground. So that structure you showed us the picture of. So there's 2 of those. The other wells are below ground. The other reservoirs are below ground. And so this pumping reservoir in Equinel, is there a well in Equinel, or it's just a reservoir for storing water for that area?
So through you, Madam Mayor, the Equinel station, because of how far it is from the rest of the distribution system, it is a booster pump station to ensure pressure can remain in Equinel. There is no well there. It's purely a booster system in that area. And part of that is due to the proximity to the landfill site that is there. Okay. So it's purely a booster system.
Okay, thank you. And where are the other 3 wells?
So the other 3 wells are located at, we have one just on Alfred Street, just south of Clothier Street. We have one on Kernahan Street.
Okay.
And then we have the other one on Van Buren and Prescott.
Okay.
And the other, yes, as you mentioned, the other 3 reservoirs are underground. They're concrete structures underground.
Okay, thank you very much.
Okay, great, thank you. Ms. Preston, do we need to do anything here? Okay, and that would be to receive the report? To endorse the dream. Excellent, thank you. I will look that up, and I'm sure Councillor Wilson and Councillor O'Sullivan, perhaps you consider moving and seconding that Council endorse the Drinking Water Quality System Management System, Operational Plan 2.0, version 9.0 for the Kemptville Drinking Water System. So with that in mind, thank you, Councillor Wilson. Councillor O'Sullivan, I just want to ask, when would the next operational plan be brought to Council? Is it every 5 years, as per your reference to the last plan being adopted in 2019, or is it more of a regular renewal?
So updates to the plan are brought as there's significant upgrades to council. The endorsement piece is there's a significant change or a change to council or a significant change to top management, then it should be brought forward again for further adoption. So it's on a fairly regular basis. We do report our audits to council during our annual reporting. So those are brought forward. And that'll identify if there's any concerns or nonconformities with the ministry's requirements.
Okay, great. Thanks for that. So I'm going to call the question. All in favor, please? Good. That carries. Thank you for your indulgence, Council and Mr. Finley. So I think now we're moving on to other business. I do not believe we have other business this evening. So we'll now go to section N, notice of motions. And I believe, Councillor Sullivan, you do have a notice of motion this evening.
Yes, I do. Thank you, Madam Mayor. So the motion is related to a columbarium in the Kemptville Union Cemetery. Whereas the municipality of North Grenville has care and control of the operations of the Kemptville Union Cemetery, and whereas there is an increasing preference for cremation over earth burial and an increasing request for internment in a columbarium, and whereas a columbarium is a low-maintenance capital investment for cemeteries, which provides for an efficient use of space within a cemetery, and whereas the sale of niches in a columbarium could generate additional revenue that would offset the care and maintenance of the municipality-operated cemetery. Now therefore be it resolved that council direct staff to report back to council in the month of September with options for a columbarium for the Kemptville Union Cemetery, including capital implications for the 2025 budget.
Excellent. So as a notice of motion, is Councillor Sullivan moving that? Okay. Preston, so she's looking for a seconder this evening, correct? All right, do we have a seconder for that motion? Okay, Deputy Mayor, thank you.
Yeah, I intend to second the motion in order to get it on the floor so we can have a bit of a discussion. I do have an amendment in mind.
All right, so Deputy Mayor is seconding it. So the motion is on the floor. Any discussion before I invite Deputy Mayor to amend? Councillor Sullivan, is there any other context you want to provide for the notice motion?
No,
Okay.
I don't think so.
Okay, Deputy Mayor, go
I'm
ahead.
sorry. I will answer any questions
Of
that
course.
anyone has, though. Happy to do that.
Indeed. All right, Deputy Mayor?
Yeah, I feel that as well-intentioned as this is, it's very specific, and I'd be looking for a report that was more general in mind. The various whereases all speak to one kind of dealing with interment. So the final paragraph, I would suggest this change, if it's accepted by the mover, that now therefore be it resolved that council directs staff to report back to council in the month of September with a variety of options regarding burial and interment, including capital implications for the 2025 budget. So I would like to look further than just simple columbarium, but I look at a variety of different options that people are considering in terms of how to deal with past loved ones, etc. Thank you.
Councillor Wilson?
Through you, Mayor Peckford, to Deputy Mayor Barclay, you have said columbarium for anything specific. You haven't indicated that it's only for Kemptville Union Cemetery. Would this be for all cemeteries that are in North Grenville? It would not include a Catholic cemetery.
I specifically left out Kemptville Union Cemetery as I thought that was very specific, but I'm open to suggestions.
Ms. Preston?
So I would note, while I hear Deputy Mayor Barclay's comment about the generality, I would remind council that we only have care and control over the Kemptville Union Cemetery. We can absolutely have conversations with the other maintenance partners in our community about options that exist to them, but we really only have the jurisdiction over the care and maintenance of the Kemptville Union Cemetery to make specific decisions. However, we can always have conversations with our partners in the community about the options that they may or may not be knowledgeable that exist.
Thanks for clarifying. Sorry, you want to comment, but whether it remains or is excluded, I'm open to suggestion. But thanks for that information.
Yes, and from my perspective, I was going to chime in similarly to Ms. Preston. We have jurisdiction over one cemetery, so I do think we have to confine our focus largely to the cemetery that the municipality operates on a daily basis. I think columbarium should absolutely be part of the consideration. Perhaps other options can be addressed through the review, but I think at this time it would be appropriate for the municipality of North Grenville to be looking specifically at the options within the Union Cemetery.
That said, I'm happy to include it.
Okay. And so both a reference to Kemptville Union Cemetery and the columbarium, I think, are necessary in that last now therefore.
As long as we include, and then the purpose of my amendment is to include other options available to the public.
With options for a columbarium and other possibilities?
Other options not exclusive to a columbarium or not limited to a columbarium.
With options,
Not limited. I think the
Ms.
clerk
Preston may
probably
have
has a wordsmithing
language. Yep.
option for us.
Great. Ms. Preston?
Yes, through you, Madam Mayor. With the acceptance of the mover and seconder, now therefore be it resolved, the council directs staff to report back to council in the month of September with a variety of options for burial and interment, including a columbarium for the Kemptville Union Cemetery and capital implications for the 2025 budget.
Are you favorable to that, Councillor Sullivan?
I just don't want to see this delayed. It's been something that I've been speaking to staff about since 2000, I believe, after I went to Roma in 2000. And so I would not want to see this delayed anymore. And I think if one of the other options that Deputy Mayor is referring to is a green burial option, then I think that's a totally separate thing. And I think it might be reasonable to have two separate motions. I mean, I would be happy to see options for green burial coming forward. I did make inquiries about that when I was doing research on this motion. And burials in the Union Cemetery, you do not need to be embalmed to be buried there. You do not need to be in a heavy-duty casket. You can be in a plain box or a shroud and still be buried in a green burial fashion. But I think they're two separate items to be discussed, and I'm happy to hear what advice that the clerk has to offer us.
And is it under Mr. Guy's jurisdiction? It's under the clerk's? Okay, go ahead, Ms. Preston.
To clarify, it's a joint effort between Parks and Rec and the clerk's office. Care and control is under the clerk's budget, but maintenance is through Parks and Recreation. So we're very fortunate that Joe works with us very regularly on this matter. To provide council with some additional context, that when Councillor O'Sullivan submitted her notice of motion, this was already on the work plan for both the clerk's division and Parks and Rec to review the fees for the Kemptville Union Cemetery, which in a long roundabouted way looks at the care and maintenance fund that we currently have to operate and maintain the cemetery going forward. So there is a trust fund that exists for the ongoing maintenance of the cemetery, as every cemetery across the province is required to have. For council's benefit, one of the things that we are looking at is that we continue to draw from that maintenance fund but don't replenish it. And that there is a trend in this province as our churches and organizations deplete, that the municipality on the disbandment of a cemetery organization automatically becomes the owner of a cemetery that is quote unquote abandoned. And so we were looking at the care and maintenance fund in a general fashion, and that part of that investigation was going to be a fulsome report on the options available to the Kemptville Union Cemetery, including the possibility of a columbarium, which has the research and the definitive ability to replenish a care and maintenance fund at a very fast-paced rate. And that it comes at the benefit of having very low maintenance. So it was on the docket for 2025 as a purchase for council's consideration. But I note that we are looking at as a wholesome review of the cemetery, the fees associated with our cemetery, so that if there is the instance of the municipality needing to take over a cemetery within our jurisdiction, that we would also have a nest egg to help us in that endeavor, should that become necessary.
Thank you so much. So just returning to the motion at hand, I think we have some proposed language. Councillor Sullivan, if we just create a timeline for the return of a report, even if it doesn't exhaustively examine all of the possible options, but puts a focus certainly on the columbarium as a primary additional option, potentially with reference to others. And we just time limit a return in terms of a report to council. Will that give you comfort so that we can move the motion ahead?
Yes, it would.
Okay, so Ms. Preston, with the proposed amendment to the motion, what's a reasonable timeline to return a report to council?
We have proposed September.
Okay.
I think that also provides us some ability to reach out to our advisory committees who may be looking at these options, including the Environmental Action Advisory Committee on green burials, as well as perhaps to look at some cemeteries. As council is aware, it's cemetery season. They are open for business, and so we can reach out to see what our neighboring municipalities are undertaking as well for alternative options, whether that be as municipally operated cemeteries or privately operating cemeteries, to see what options others are doing in their creativity, given the changes that have occurred over the last while.
Okay. So we can expect a report back in September. Is that to your satisfaction, Councillor Sullivan? Okay. So then we have that amended language. We have a mover. We have a seconder. Who was our seconder? We had secured one. Okay, Deputy Mayor, we're good here? With the proposed amendment. Yeah, that was considered friendly, so we would call the question on the entire motion as Councillor O'Sullivan read it. With the amendment at the end. Okay, great. Thank you. So I'm going to call the question. All in favor? Good. That carries. Thank you very much. I look forward to more discussion. And I guess I just want to conclude this by saying I think it is truly about the families at the end. We want to better serve families. I know that when my mother passed away a couple of years ago, she was very clear that there was one way that she wanted to be remembered. And unfortunately, we had to actually purchase an urn and bury her ashes in a cemetery in Newfoundland because they didn't have something like a columbarium to better accommodate what her wishes were. So I think there is a significant demand for improved options, and I certainly look forward to seeing what you bring back. Ms. Preston, I know you have extensive background in this area, so look forward to a discussion in the fall. Thank you very much. All right, introduction and consideration of bylaws. I believe we've addressed all of that this evening. I don't see any members of the public, members of our community, or from the media here this evening, and I do not believe we have anyone online. Is that right? Okay. So we'll move to the close of the meeting, confirmation bylaw. That is bylaw 4324 to confirm proceedings of council at its regular meeting held on June 4th be adopted and passed. Mover and a seconder, Councillor Wilson, thank you. Councillor Sullivan will second. I'll call the question. All in favor? Excellent. And a motion to adjourn at 7:58 p.m., colleagues. Not too bad this evening. I'll look for Deputy Mayor to move, Councillor Sullivan to second. And I'll call the question on adjournment just in time before 8 o'clock. Thank you. Our meeting is adjourned.